This is Todd coming at you with another episode of Living Your Best Life. Everyone, this is 2022 and Happy New Year. We made it through another one, right? We made it through another one, and it's been a rocky one, but we still made it through. And we've been kind of like having to deal with this whole COVID thing for the past 2 years. And no matter what, it's definitely something that's in our society right about now, that's on our weight on our shoulders. And how do we get through it? You know, we need each other. We have to be spiritually grounded. We have to just be as healthy as we can be, you know, through it all. Take care of yourself. My goodness. I pray for the people that are, you know, that are going through this whole thing right now, that are sick and that have lost loved ones. Everyone, I'm pretty sure, knows someone that is either dealing with it or has lost someone from it. But bottom line, we're still here, and that's the blessing, and we have to move forward. So what we do on our show, everyone, is we invite a guest onto the show to talk about what they're doing and what they do and how what they do is contributing to a healthier society. And so what we're going to do tonight, everybody, is we're going to talk to a life coach. And I met this young brother about a month, 2 months ago, something like that. And I was just impressed. And I was like, I've got to have this gentleman on to talk about his perspective on life, his business, his life coaching business, because he is deep. And when he talked about the word intuition a month ago or so, the way that he broke it down, I was like, wow. Open my eyes. So, Mr. John Ebron, thank you so much, man, for hanging out with us this evening, or whenever you are in this universe while you're watching it.
Man, I'm so thrilled to be here, and I thank you so much for bringing me into the circle, man. I'm excited.
Man, like I said, thank you so much. Man, like I said, when I first met you, it was on a Zoom, and you were giving a short presentation. And like I said, I was just impressed with you, man. Your demeanor, your very calm approach to things, and I was like, wow, this brother's cool. And so, like I said, thank you so much, man. So, John, as we move on with the show and in life, you know, I want our audience, man, to get an idea of who you are and your mission, and most important, your vision, man. I'd love to tap into that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again. So hi, everybody. My name is John Ebron. We were just joking about that earlier today. I said, I try to, you know, help people understand how to say my last name. It's a pretty simple name. Turned around. So I said, just think of LeBron without the L or the basketball skills. And you got me. So, I am a life and leadership and life coach with the John Maxwell team. I've been with the John Maxwell team for, going about 8 years now, about 8 years or so.
Awesome.
Before that, I spent some time in the military and the chaplain's corps, and that's really where I got my start in coaching and life coaching in particular. We had right around the time, I like to kind of give a little synopsis of this, right around the time when we got really engulfed in the Afghanistan and Iraqi campaigns. A lot of us were coming back really broken from the experience, right? Because we were so efficient in going and coming and going and coming, you know, we really didn't realize what we're doing to ourselves in making that happen. And so back in those days, fitness was strictly physical, right? So if you could do push-ups, sit-ups, and run for 2 miles, you are fit. That's all we need to know. And so that obviously we saw that wasn't working. So we really began to expand our concept of fitness, fit and health. And the Army set up a campaign, called the Ready and Resilient campaign. And so we branched out just not just with physical fitness, but also looking at social fitness and family fitness, spiritual fitness, emotional fitness, and all of those different dimensions. And so in the emotional arena, we started a program called the Master Resilience Trainer. And I got selected to become one of the first Master Resilience Trainers in the Army. And it was just phenomenal, you know. Everybody kind of dubbed it as sensitivity training, and we don't have time for that crap right now. And we were all resistant to it. But when I started getting involved in training and teaching and coaching a little bit, and it was, I teach a class and someone to come to me and say, I was planning on killing myself, but now I want to help and I want to try to, live this life, just real
Wow.
life transformation, like right in front of my eyes. So that's what inspired me.
Hmm.
And since I've since retired from the military, but I wanted to continue that work. And so I decided to start my own practice, Ebron Coaching and Consulting. And we really focus on the dimensions of health and aligning your practices with proven principles of effectiveness, right?
Hmm.
So not just the quick new 5 ways to get things done and how to win this or how to get that, or, but how to align over time your practices with proven principles so that what you
Hmm.
experience is birthed out of realness,
Right.
substantial. Yeah. So that's what we're engaged in now.
Wow. Awesome, man. Thank you so much for that, man. And so, we a lot of people have heard the term life coach, and because you have quite a few different types of coaches. I'm a coach, I'm a weight loss coach, and
Yeah.
you have business coaches and things like that. And so, but like I was saying in my intro, man, right now, you know is a real strange time, because a lot of us, if you're watching some of the media or some of the bad news, you can see tensions rise
Hmm.
in our society right now. And it's almost like people are just losing it, man. And so, my thing is like, when it comes to a life coach, can
Hmm.
you share with us what a life coach is? Who are
Yeah.
your best candidates for, looking for a life coach? Who will be looking for a life coach? Like I said, we see a lot of people out here that are really, I feel, that need someone in their lives like a life coach.
Right, right, right. Well, great question. Great question. So I would say in the suite of helping initiatives,
Mm-hmm.
right? You have like the full gambit of um, what Dr. Covey, which I think we're going to talk a little bit about him
Yeah.
today as well. He talks about earlier on in his one of his pivotal works, this thing called the Maturity Continuum, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you move from dependency to independency to interdependency, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so a lot of times, because we live in such a busy, fertile, crazy time, right?
Yeah.
We can find ourselves, in our lives and lifestyles in any one of those kind of dimensions, right? And so, what a life coach really does well is, again, categorically creates a process and a space for an individual to make upfront decisions on how to live their lives
Mm-hmm.
and measure and monitor that decision, as time goes on. So life coaches, we work from the present to the future,
Mm-hmm.
right? Opposed to like therapists, for example, which works sometimes from the past to the present.
Mm-hmm.
And so the coaching industry, the life coaching industry, which, there's so much interlap, right?
Right.
Uh, so when a person calls themselves a coach, they can qualify it by saying I'm a leadership coach, or I'm a life coach, or I'm a health coach, or I'm a coach's coach, whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of interchangeability, there. But all of that, the coaching industry, which is like really booming right now, there are a lot of coaches being, birthed every day in the
Yeah.
industry.
Yeah.
Um, really came out of the sports industry,
Yeah.
and um, that's an easy analogy to make when people kind of help them understand the difference between like counseling or therapy or coaching, right? So, if I was an athlete, right? I'm a star athlete, and I'm preparing for a season, right? Or preparing for a specific game or some sort. I could work with a coach because I'm already prime and I'm already at my peak. And now we can take that peak conditioning and apply it towards this massive goal. right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But let's say in the process of preparing for that goal, let's say I injure myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I have to move back from preparing for this goal into more healing ministry, for lack of
Mm-hmm.
better terms,
Mm-hmm.
right? So now you need a physical therapist to help you recover and get back from the past brokenness
Mm-hmm.
to a
Mm-hmm.
present day measure of health so you can move into the future, right?
Wow. Wow.
So life coaches are really there to help happy, healthy, whole individuals, right?
Right.
Doesn't mean that you don't have any problems going on in life, but
Yeah.
happy, healthy, whole individuals move into success and maybe even into significance with their life,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
So that's kind of like the line of demarcation. I've had it only a couple of times, in my coaching life, my coaching career, where I've had to discontinue a coaching relationship and refer the person to therapy because
Right. Right. They
you know
weren't there.
they weren't there. Like the initial, like one person I'm thinking off the top of my head, he had a lot of business goals that he wanted to accomplish. I want to, doing well in my business, I want to take my business to, a six-figure, revenue, and so we really got to working with that. And as we begin to do some discovery, there was a lot of childhood trauma that kept coming up instead
Mm.
of,
Wow.
business practices, right? And
Yeah.
so, you really need to, resolve those issues. I think you will see, a change in these other external issues when you work on some of these internal issues. And
Wow.
he agreed and thanked me for that, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of like the difference when you're dealing with life coaches, you or your unit, for lack of better terms, because it could be your family, it could be with your kids.
Yeah.
You're working on something big going into the future.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that because just like what I do with regards to personal training, um, I work holistically with people because I can't, what I want to stay in my lane for the most
Mm.
part. And
Mhm.
so just like you said, when the person is coming to you uh, for life coaching, but you see that there's some other issues that he needs to, kind of like take care of, you don't try to take care of that. You say, listen, I think we need to, set up some time and, maybe refer him out to someone or what have you.
Mhm.
And so I applaud you for knowing, where to say, I need to kind of like send this person here. And then we can, after you're done there, then we can have that conversation and we can
Mhm.
resume this conversation. And I think that's important because, like I said, I don't want to, I want to stay in my lane, like I said, and a person that has some type of trauma in their lives, I want to be able to make sure that they are successful in their life, not
Yeah.
just weight loss, because a lot of times weight loss is a symptom of things that are in their past.
Oh,
And
powerful.
so
Yeah.
we have to try to tackle those things in order for you to have a healthier body and a healthier mindset. And so, like you said, I mean, I applaud you for recognizing where you are in
Yeah.
your scope and saying, okay, listen, this is not my area. So, but yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and to borrow from your industry again, right? Like this is one of the things. I am an aspiring gym rat. I want to be a gym rat when I grow old, when I get older, I guess. But that's one of the things I always look for with a personal trainer, right?
Hmm.
Um, because you can see these guys in the gym. They're built like cartoon characters, right? They look like an Avenger or something, right?
Yeah,
And they're
yeah.
motivated. And they're ready to train you. But one of the first things I look for, and I don't suggest it, I want to see if they're going to suggest it, is do you do an assessment?
Hmm.
Do you
Hmm.
do an
Hmm.
initial assessment?
Yeah,
Help me figure out what my plan, my plan A or my part A is at, right? Where my
yeah,
current
yeah,
location is
yeah,
at. Because yeah, I mean, your calling card may be your aesthetics and your physique and say, hey, I can get you like this, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that you have the experience because you have an aesthetic, right?
yeah, yeah.
And it's the same way with life coaches, right? You should be able to do an intake, do an assessment with your potential client and see what is best for this person, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And a rule of thumb, and these are things that really any reputable trained life coach, they already kind of know these things, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And there's nothing to say that you have to have some sort of degree or anything to be a life coach, but I think it's always best to be certified by someone with proven practices. And so, rule of thumb, if a person needs a diagnosis, a treatment plan, or anything like that, that is outside of your scope as a life coach.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
I
yeah.
know of some life coaches that kind of equates their processes to that, right? Like, we're going to do spiritual surgery. Okay, right. Well, I'm going to call my lawyer.
Yeah.
You know, because we start talking surgery and treatment plans and
Yeah,
drugs.
yeah, yeah,
You got to be certified. You got to be governed to do that kind of work, right?
yeah.
So yeah, it is. It feels nebulous, but if you really know the industry, being a life coach is pretty well laid out. Your left and right boundaries are pretty well laid out for you, so
Gotcha.
you can really be helpful when you know what you can and can't do.
Right. There we go. There we go. There we go. Like I said, it's just knowing your scope and knowing your lane. And so let's talk about leadership, because this we look towards the leaders, and we see the leaders like heroes and that whole thing. And so it's a two-part question that I do have for you. One is, what is a leader? Okay. And two, this question has always been out there for a while. Is there such thing as a born leader, or is that something that we step into and we show up as, like, we take on that role or that task as a leader? So so what is a leader, and are we born as leaders?
Yeah, great questions. Great questions. Well, so my old army kind of rises up when you start talking about
Exactly. That's why I wanted to make sure I asked this question of you.
Yeah, that is one of the first things as a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid, if you are getting in that early, that we start to ingrain in you, right? What leadership is, and what does it mean to be a leader? Because, once you take on that level of responsibility of wearing that uniform, no matter what your rank is, at any given point in time, you can become the leader, right? So, things change throughout the years, doctrines change and wording change, but the old school definition still rings true for me. My coach and mentor, John Maxwell, puts it real plain, right? He says, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less, right?
Wow.
My military background, we taught that leadership is the art of influencing others to do what you want them to do by providing purpose, direction, and motivation. Those three things, right?
Wow.
And so as a leader, that is your business. And I was just having this conversation with some friends of ours in Houston before I got home today about what leadership is and why it's so important. Leadership always comes first. And it is always, in my opinion, the harder job, right? Because it is the intangible part of creation, bringing it into the tangible world. So the leader has to see more, see quicker, see further than the other people who is following this individual.
Yeah.
So if you are my leader and I'm your follower, and our job is to, dig ditches, right? I may be dealing with the sweat equity of actually putting the shovel in the ground and digging out, but you've got the harder job of seeing where all these areas, where all these ditches need to go before 1 mound of dirt is shoveled, right?
Yeah.
So you have to see the intangible. Give me the purpose, right? If we don't get this dug, then A, B, C, D, right? It's important. So the direction is, you're going to dig it this way. It's got to be this dimension. It's got to be this long. It's got to be this deep. And it has to be this at a minimum. Give me clear, precise directions. And you have to do that before you have any real prototype in front of you or any results in front of you. You go in front of the results, right? And then you got to give me the motivation, I've assigned you to this because I believe in you. I know you can do it, and you're going to be the reason why ABC is handled, because you put your back into this, and I'm with you, and I got you. If you need anything, I'm going to provide you the resources you need to get that job done. But you got to, and you give me purpose, direction, and motivation. You might not have to lift that shovel and shovel 1 mound of dirt, but you will be the reason why, as the leader, that got done. You know.
Wow. Wow. That's the first time I've heard it broken down that way, man. I will say,
Yeah.
and yeah, thanks for that. So is there such thing as born leaders? I mean, is that something that we just, once again, we aspire to,
Mhm.
or we just step up to?
I say yes and no,
Right,
right?
right,
I give
right.
you one of those nebulous answers.
And I kind of figured it's kind of like the only place you can go with that kind of a question.
Yeah, yeah. So there are leadership attributes and leadership traits, right?
Mhm.
That leaders, kind of exude. And based
Right,
off of their personality type, their earlier conditioning through family and maybe other experiences they've had, they may have sharpened some of these attributes without even knowing that they do it, right?
right, right,
Like
right.
you may be, for example, the oldest, sibling, with a single parent, and that parent has to kind of count on you to make some things happen while they're away at work and say, listen, kids got to be fed, homework got to be done, or whatever. And so you might not initially want to take on that leadership role of getting everybody to the kitchen table and getting their homework done, but that experience is yours. And then you
Yeah,
can translate that
yeah.
experience into your first working, experience or what have you.
Wow. Hmm, hmm.
So it may feel like this person was just a born leader, right? But the conditioning was there, you
Hmm.
know? And I truly believe that spiritually, our experiences gets into our DNA, you know,
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah,
and
yeah,
you may come from a line of go-getters because we've always had to go get it, right?
yeah, yeah.
And and you may just kind of have that injection of leadership attributes just because of your lineage, for lack of better terms,
Right,
right?
right, right.
Where we always talk about generational curses, but they're also
Yeah,
generational blessings, right?
yeah.
um and so I think that the encouraging thing, because I am not a natural born leader, right? um I was one of those shy guys. I'm an introvert with extrovert tendencies.
Yeah, and I wonder about that with myself. I don't feel as though I have like a natural born leadership kind of, quality within me,
Yeah,
but I know the role. I see a purpose. I
that's
understand
it.
purpose, and I
That's it.
think that's really what it comes down to.
Hmm.
If I
when you
can be.
when your confidence is engaged, it's because you have a level of competence
Hmm.
that meets a level of purpose, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And eventually life will back you into enough corners where you have to get a sense of identity with yourself to say, you know what, I can make this happen. I could care less if you
yeah,
can't,
yeah,
but I
yeah,
can, right?
yeah.
And that's where the leader is born and chiseled out of the clay and all of that, right? Just you have some amazing purpose that's just pressing you. And so it
Right.
forces all that's in you to kind of come to the surface so that you can utilize it and use it. So yeah,
Interesting. Interesting.
anybody can develop the leadership attributes and skills needed to be a stellar leader. Anybody can.
Wow.
I truly believe that.
And I believe it too. I think a lot of us ignore the opportunities,
Hmm.
that come before us, either daily or weekly or monthly or what have you.
Hmm.
And we kind of like tend to kind of like want to, back away. Just the other day, I was watching the movie Coach Carter. And the Marianne Williamson has the poem, our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate, but that we are more powerful beyond measure. And so, and that poem just shakes me up every single time I either hear it or I either read it, because it just highlights who we really are
Hmm.
versus who we think we are. And, our littleness, our smallness, we tend to celebrate and highlight the little part of ourselves, and we keep our magnificent selves,
Yeah.
in the closet, and that's the tragedy. Like I said, I
Right.
think we kind of like tend to uh, uh, overlook the opportunities, or look past the opportunities, or just let them pass us by, for us to actually step up to and step into our leadership. But like you said, when it's pressed and you find that purpose, then boom, we show up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, so Eastern philosophy talks about this larger universe and then the small
Yes.
universe, right?
Yes. Yes.
And they equate the human body to the vastness of the universe itself. That's,
Mm-hmm.
you know, how
Mm-hmm.
enormous our capabilities are. You know,
Yes.
they're
Yes.
nuclear, they're quantum, right? You know,
Right.
and you know, it really depends on do we go on the self-discovery journey, the leader's journey, to find out what's all in there, you know?
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
is another point, not to divest back, but that's another point about coaching that I love, right?
What's that? Yeah.
Is I'm a trainer by heart, right? So, you know,
Mm-hmm.
any soldier you meet is a trainer, right? They throw you right into the fire, right? You got to learn how to
Yeah.
train this and train that. I'm a trainer by heart, but with coaching, training is a external modality, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm gonna give you 5 steps to run the brand new T1000, blah 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 blah, right? The completion of this
Mm-hmm.
training, you'll be able to do these 5 things, and it's teaching you these external processes and steps, outside of yourself. Coaching is all about educating you about who you are, right?
Yes.
And in
Yes.
fact, the word education itself comes from an original word that means to go within. So
Mm-hmm.
when you're really educating someone, you're not giving them, the next 5 steps or something external to themselves. You're providing a learning experience where they actually go within themselves, because that's where the answer is at.
Wow. Wow.
So
Wow.
it is a whole different dynamic of discovery or learning when you start coaching, because you have to have a lot of patience, because when you ask powerful questions, oftentimes your clients want you to answer like, that's why I'm talking to you, give me the answer, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But the answer, I can't give you the answer. I
Yes.
can't give you the answer and that answer really be authentic and unique to you.
Yes.
What I
Yes.
can do is create a space to help you go within, because that's where the answer is. That's where you're going to meet God, and when I first started coaching, and not to get too spooky spiritual,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
when I first started coaching, I was praying and I asked God, well, what am I doing? What is this about? Because I'm falling in love with this thing and I've pretty much settled this is what I want to do, but what is this?
Mm-hmm.
And the impression that came back to me was, when you sit across, the table or the space with a client, you're sitting across from God.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, you are dealing with a God with amnesia, who has
Yeah.
forgotten that
Wow.
there's God
Wow.
within them.
Wow.
There's a little combination lock that's been thrown on their heart, right? And the coaching process is about helping them flip the tumblers of that
Right.
combination lock,
Yeah.
unlocking it, because that's where the answer is at. It's in
Yeah.
the person.
Yeah.
And so that's what it's really, really about. Becoming a leader is not just learning, the next steps or getting a leadership degree or getting leadership experience on the job. It's about going within and finding out your ability to influence people,
Wow.
your way of relaying, the purpose, your way of giving direction, your way of inspiring and motivating people. Nobody can do it like you. And
Hmm.
it's needed.
Wow. Everybody, like I told you, this dude was like phenomenal. I told you.
Thank you.
I told you, John. It's bad, man. He's bad. So, in one of our discussions, John, we spoke about Stephen Covey's book, Covey, right?
Yeah.
Uh, uh, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. And so when you talk to me, when you shared your information about it, just maybe go back and let's say, okay, let me go back and reread the book, because I think sometimes when we do read books, they can either grab us depending on where we are in our levels of awareness or maturity or what have you. And sometimes we can just read and just like, okay, well, I read it, blah, blah, blah. But, when you spoke about it, I was like, let me go and read this book again, because I think I'm more ready for it now. And sure
Awesome.
enough, I went and I grabbed it, man. And yes, it's grabbed me in a totally different way. And so what I wanted to kind of like speak about are, there 7 habits. And
Yeah.
habits are, we don't realize how much we are driven by our habits. My God,
Absolutely.
every single day I look at it and I'm saying, Mike, look at my habits and what are they? And are they serving me, or are they, doing a disservice? And what do I need to do to take away the bricks of bad habits and start to inspect that brick and either put it away and rebuild it and put something else there?
Yeah.
And so, like I said, I would love for you to go over, just a couple of those 7 habits, one being, the proactive habit, I think is really, really cool when I was, kind of like listening and reading to that whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, so I cut my teeth on personal growth and development off the 7 habits. I was, um, at that point, I was living a pretty isolated life. It was
Right.
such a paradox because I was in the military. So I was in the largest team on the planet, but I also was feeling very, very isolated and very alone. And so I didn't have a strong support system with all of this massive responsibility on my shoulders. And and my job was helping people grow from the inside out, right?
Wow.
And I
Wow.
was
Yeah.
my entire military career was in the chaplain's corps, facilitating religious support. Um, and so it was just, so I kind of got access to things. And the 7 habits was one of them. It's when I first read that first habit, be proactive. I was so insulted because you can equate be proactive with you're responsible, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
like, how dare you? I can't be responsible for all this mess in my life. I mean,
Yeah.
my wife bit me, my dog left me, my chicken got spots on it every Wednesday it rains, and I had all these problems, right?
Yeah.
All of these things that were happening to me. How can I be responsible? But what I really got from be proactive and proactivity was not so much a pointing of the finger and blaming you're responsible, was that you are responsible.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
are capable. You're able to respond to whatever that you are currently experiencing. And
Wow.
you have the opportunity to, for lack of better terms, make a judgment. You know, this is, I'm enjoying this or I'm not enjoying this.
Yeah.
And if I am enjoying this, then I am responsible to create more of what I'm enjoying.
Mm.
If I'm not enjoying this, then I am able to put myself on a different trajectory, a different course, and to experience something new, right?
Mm-hmm.
And without that awareness, you're stuck in the water. You can't do anything, you
Wow.
know.
Yeah. Yeah.
You will be stuck with your feelings of inadequacy and misalignment, and the world is horrible, and all this kind of stuff. And and
Yeah.
I used to be so negative. I could not stop that from hemorrhaging out of me. I hated to talk because all
That's
I had was that negativity coming out, but I did not recognize I was proactive. I could be proactive.
wow. Why were you in that space of like, and the reason I asked that, because you and I,
Mhm.
we kind of share a parallel type of journey, and this is why I say that, because I was
Mhm.
in New York City, and New York City is go 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 go, people 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 people, but being the introvert that I am, how do I find myself in this place? And I got to a point where I, you know wasn't being proactive, in the sense I wasn't being response. I didn't recognize my ableness or my
Mhm.
ability to respond in a different way versus just reaction.
Right, right.
So how did you find yourself in that?
So a common phrase I use with myself and with my clients is that we are completely different and exactly the same, right?
Yeah.
All at
Yeah.
the same time. So that's the
Yeah.
kind of like our paradox.
Yeah.
And so categorically, we are all facing the same thing.
Hmm.
Categorically, we are all in it, right? But there's a specificity to our journey that makes it uniquely ours, right? So for me specifically, I grew up in a little small farming community, really. We were big tobacco fields and cornfields and cucumbers and cotton and all that stuff. And so there wasn't a lot of industry. I was just telling again some friends of ours today, I said, I claim Greenville, North Carolina, because you actually can find that on a map. I'm really from a little
Mhm.
city up north of it called Bethel, North Carolina.
Okay.
We are teaming right now with about 2,600 people, population wise, right, in our city. Literally one stoplight. So little small community. Um, there was a great divide. There's very few white people, a lot of
Mhm.
black people comparatively, right? And no other people. So,
Right. Wow. Wow.
um, and so the majority of the farms and the lands, they were owned by white people. There was a strong racial divide there, and no historical um, context of becoming black and affluent, black and
Mhm.
financially and socially secure. None of that, right? It was all, hook and crook and make it happen, right?
Right.
So I grew up in that kind of, poverty and that kind of despair. And
Mm.
so, and insult to injury, right? I'm throwing air
Yeah.
quotes there as I say that. I'm also a gay man.
Yes. Yes.
Um, and so, in the, was born in 19, right? Needless to say, there wasn't a big, equality revolution
Right.
going back in
Right.
those days. And so, a black man in my little small community was already seen as very disadvantaged to begin with.
Mhm.
So to add the title gay on top of that
Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
and I didn't know how to deal with that at all. So I did
Right.
not want to deal with that.
Right.
So what I wound up doing was trying to reduce my world down and make it so small
Wow.
that I
Wow.
can't be seen. Because the only thing that could come out of me being seen is me being hurt.
Mm.
This is the mentality that I kind of came up with. So I became a people pleaser. I
Mhm.
did not become anyone that saw worth or value in myself, and I didn't try to explore that. Right. So now you take this kid, let him grow up a little bit, and throw them into a massive organization like the United States Army.
Yeah. Exactly.
And so the only skill sets that I had developed was those of isolation and separation. Right.
Yeah.
And so that is kind of how I got into this space of now I've got this massive responsibility. I've got, formations of people who are counting on me to do my job so they can do their job. And my job entails, providing space for their families to grow and, personal stuff. And so that is kind of how I found myself in that space. And that time frame, I'm writing a book about this, as a matter of fact. So y'all wait
Yeah.
for the book to come out.
I
But
hope so.
16 of my 20 years was under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which
Wow.
was federal law that basically said you cannot be who you are, right?
Wow.
And so if I was suffering or struggling with, you and I are brothers in arms, right? We're saying we're in the same unit, and
Mhm.
you come to
Mhm.
me when you're having marital problems, or you're having, conscious, self-consciousness problems, or whatever spiritual problem, and I can be there for you as a support system, and you would want to be there for me, but it's illegal for me to tell,
Mm.
and it's illegal for you to ask, right? So I found myself in a place where I could not, in my mind, I could not be supported.
Yeah. Wow.
And so it was eventually accidentally turning to the 7 habits and personal growth, industry, to start finding ways of living an effective life, living a happy life, right?
Right. Right.
Because I could not share that with another person, but I could get it from a book, you know.
Wow. What, living in the question mark, you know,
Mm,
living in the contradiction, you
yeah,
know, it's such a strange place to live, such a
absolutely.
hard place to live.
Yeah.
And because like I said, when I was in New York City, I I was into the music industry, and music can be a very selfish endeavor, especially when you're in the creative part of it. And so I grew up largely with a lot of times me and my instruments, and that was me. So I didn't have a lot of social skills to really get out
Wow.
and really build relationships and build friendships. And so I was kind of like handicapped in that space. And but I know that there was this intense loneliness,
Mhm.
you know
Mhm.
because the instruments can only get you so far, but you're
Yeah.
living in that type of an environment, in that mind space, and it's pounding, pounding, pounding. And but yeah, like I said, I know we got off, and you and I, man, it's like 45 minutes into this whole
Oh,
thing,
yeah.
and I have just been just loving this dialogue, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
But
just
can I
thank you
just say
for
real quick,
yeah,
just
yeah,
to bring home this point that
yeah,
completely different and exactly the same, you know?
yeah, exactly, exactly,
So
exactly.
you don't have to have my experience to
Yeah,
really be a brother and support me, you know? Because
yeah,
categorically, we're really the same, you
yeah,
know? My
yeah,
isolation
yeah,
came from this catalyst or this experience. But you had isolation just as significant, and it
yeah,
came from this catalyst.
yeah,
And when you become victorious over that, thing that isolation is one, but there's so many other things that people are dealing with. If you can think larger, you can take your life experience and really be a blessing to other people, right?
yeah. And I think that's where I decided one day to actually move in that space. Okay, I know that I'm here for a larger purpose. And like I said, I'll go back to that word purpose. And so once again, you talk about those habits,
Mhm.
and you start all of the personal development types of information that you can either listen to or that you can read or what have you. So that was my path on breaking away from that isolation, to really kind of like say, okay, I'm going to be who I am,
Mm.
and I have to be okay with that. I'm going to
Mhm.
have to be, I'm going to have to understand that I am not, this, this figurehead that is like, this extrovert personality. That's not who I am. I'm just gonna have to be comfortable and be cool with who I am in
And
my
that's
space,
okay.
and
Right.
still do what I do
Right.
by living in that purpose. So begin with the end in mind is
Yeah.
another one of the habits that I was really, intrigued by.
Yeah. And so if for those who have not read the book, I'm
Yeah.
not going to do too many spoilers. Go get the book. It is
Yeah.
one of
So
those
this is gonna be the
titles.
last one. So check this out. Which I'm gonna leave this up to you. Okay, we're gonna
Okay.
do one more of these right here, right? So we have the one that I wanted to touch on, either win-win or begin with the end in mind. Which one would you want to kind of touch on?
Let me do begin with the end in mind.
All right, cool. We go with
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah. So slight spoiler, there's 7 habits, right? So the first
Yeah.
3 habits are what we call the private victories. So these are like personal leadership attributes. And then you have the public victories, which are the last 3, which win-win kind of falls in with more of the public victory, right? So you get a little bit of both if you get into that book. And I'm saying, no disrespect to the sacred text or anything like that, but I read 7 habits sort of like I read the Bible, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's on a
Exactly.
continual
Exactly.
loop, right?
Yeah.
So I just
Yeah.
you always get something new from it once you revisit it. But begin with the end in mind. I love this habit and thinking of it as a habit, because what it really touches on, like our last conference we were at together, we talked about intuition as one of the 6 human faculties, right?
Yes. Yes.
One of the
Yes.
other human faculties that is crucial. I mean, this is the difference between surviving and thriving. This is the difference between success and significance, is imagination.
Mm,
And
mm.
begin with the end in mind is all about imagination. It's about being fully present with this experience right here, and then using your mind, your imagination, and your faith to see something totally different as a possibility 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, right? So you're right here living in the moment. You're not rejecting what you're currently experiencing, but you're using your imagination to teleport into what could be. So right now I'm making $7.25 an hour while imagining being a multimillionaire, and you can do both at the same
Right.
time.
Right.
You know?
Wow.
And that's what
Wow.
begin with the end in mind is all about, right? So my point A is right here. I'm going to focus on and establish with my imagination what point B is going to be. And then I'm going to build. Now that I've got that end in mind, I'm going to backwards plan to my point A and build out a plan and a mission that's going to get me there.
You know, it's I always say thought is energy, you know, and so it's amazing that you just said that, because I always think about, you know, in everything that we see visually is thought. You know, whether it was God thought or God inspired, whichever one. But this laptop that I'm looking at right now is energy in motion, and it was definitely, like you said, you know, began here, and the thought process, you know, out there, and the steps in between, kind of like formulated and brought it to this physical space here. So that is something that, you know, I think we, once again, these are conversations, John, and let me know if do we have time in our daily lives to think about these deeper thoughts, you know, because these are things that I think about, but for the average, you know, person, you know, in their 9 to 5 lives, you know, that's looking to, you know, get the bills paid, you know, I guess these are things that, you know, you have to come into when you're ready. When they say, you know, the teacher, when the student is ready, the teacher, whatever, you know, the saying, I'm pretty sure. You know, because like I said, these are things that, you know, are deeper conversations, you know, that most people, I don't know, are we ready for them?
I would say shameless plug, right? This is why
Yeah,
you need a life coach,
gotcha,
right?
gotcha. Plug on,
This is why you
buddy.
need a life coach. Because let's say you're my life coach, I'm your client, right?
Right.
Um, there are two experts in the room.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
I am an expert when it comes to the life of John Ebron.
Right.
You, my life coach, is an expert in the process of effective living, right? I am the content, you are the container. And you're going to create this space as my life coach, knowing these principles of effectiveness, for example. And when my current experience may be in violation of it, you know,
Yeah.
sometimes you can experience pain, but the pain doesn't translate into action for you. Like, you know, something is, you know, I feel this sharp sensation in my leg, and I keep feeling every time I lean on it, it gets worse, but it doesn't get to your brain that you're sitting on a nail, and that's what you're right? You just want to say, okay, well, listen, if you sit on nails, then you're going to feel pain, right? That's
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
the process goes, right? So you can make a decision if you want to continue to sit on that nail or not, right? But I'm telling you, the process is sit on the nail, experience pain, right? And
Right.
that's the life coach. I can show you the container, but you got to fill it up with your content.
Wow.
And a life coach is really good for that, right? Now, can you get that in other areas of your life? Absolutely. This is where, you know, personal relationships and all of that is so important. But again, I have dedicated my life to understanding these processes and to be able to convey them in a way through powerful questions that bring about self-revelation for you, the experiencer. As a life coach, I have a life coach.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because when it's time for me to sit in the seat of the client, even though I'm, you know, an expert in these processes and these modalities, I can't be both figures. I can't be both roles. You know, so
Right.
even though
Right.
I
Right.
know, you know, this person's going to ask me questions, probably know the questions they're going to ask. I can't be the person asking the questions and answering the questions at the
Answering
same
the
time.
questions. Gotcha.
And so,
Gotcha.
yeah. So, but you bring a very valid point, right? Because especially when you start getting into um, men and man thinking, masculine
Right. Exactly.
focused thinking, a lot of us have been reared to think that we are shirking our personal responsibility if we ask for help,
Right.
right?
Right.
And we
Right.
have to kind of, reprogram ourselves, because really the most effective thing, you can't step, bring it back into like a corporate or secular, perspective. It's very difficult to be the leader and the manager, right? You
Yeah.
need
Yeah.
two.
Yeah.
Management will never replace leadership,
Yeah.
and leadership will never replace management, right?
Yeah.
As it says in the book, leadership is, doing the right things, or
Right.
doing, you're doing the right things, right? Leadership is.
Right.
Management is
Yes.
doing things right,
Right.
you know?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
you need both, right? You need both. And so if you're in the rat race, and if you're so busy, you can't think of how do I do things in a better way, a higher way. You got to start chiseling away at that experience and start eking out a little bit of time. It may be 1 minute or 5 minutes in the morning before you get into the rat race, right? And slowly, as that time that you are investing starts to, reap dividends in your life, you can expand that time and create a little more of that time, right?
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah, it is. It
Gotcha.
is. It's not easy
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
manage life, lead life, when it's your life that's on the line, right?
Exactly, and live it. So and you spoke about it a couple minutes ago, John, on your presentation about intuition, which really, when I listened to you and I watched you, I never thought of intuition the way that you broke it down, man.
Yeah.
And if you could, as we come to a close in this, man, um, can you kind of like give some highlights in terms of breaking down the word intuition and what it means and all of that stuff and how it plays into our lives?
Gotcha. Yeah. So intuition, again, is one of the six faculties. So as humans, unlike any other species on the planet, right? We are spirit.
Hmm.
We have been gifted with an intellect, and those are those six intellectual faculties, right? And we have a physical experience. We live on a physical plane, right? So you can be spiritual all you want, but if your paycheck is not giving you what you need, you can't get what you
Yeah,
want.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, so your spiritual greatness has got to translate down into your physical existence. This is
Right.
where we are.
Yeah.
Now, it's funny when we go to school or when we're taught at home, one of the first things we are taught are our senses, right? See,
Hmm.
touch, taste,
Hmm.
smell, hear, right? And a
Hmm.
kid can rattle those off, but we're seldomly, if ever, taught of our intellectual faculties, right?
Yeah.
Which intuition is one of those, right? And like anything else, if you don't work that muscle, it atrophies, it gets smaller.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the more you work that muscle develops a consciousness of its own, where it doesn't need you to kind of be in it all the time. You can develop some automatic muscle memory, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so if you learn, and this is something I'm learning, right? This is a
Yeah.
personal
Yeah.
goal of mine, to really focus in on developing a lifestyle that relies more on my intuition and trusting my intuition. You know,
Mm.
I'll get a
Mm.
nudge and I'll get a sense, and I'll like, well, is that really what, you know? You got to learn to trust your intuition,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think Wayne Dyer, we talked about him during
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
summit. He puts it masterfully. I think he says, prayer is us speaking to God, and our intuition is God speaking back to us, right?
Mm. Mm.
So
Mm.
you're tactical, you're on the ground, you have a limited, line of sight and purview you can see. The entity we call God, right? The collective consciousness, the rule of the universe, has a better purview than we do, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
our ability to speak to God is important, but what's more important is us being able to hear back from the universe, right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
you don't need to know why, but if I'm telling you, you need to go left right
Yeah.
now, and it can be that, right? It can be that.
Yeah.
So intuition, it is one of those leadership attributes that's not easy to really kind of explain because it is so intangible,
Yeah.
but it is that inner nudging, right? One of the things, and I'll try to close it out with this because my
Yeah.
disclaimer is I look just like my daddy and I talk just like my mama. I'll talk you to death if you let me. Um,
Love
but
it.
you know, when you think of spirit, people tend to think from a religious standpoint, right? When you hear about spirit,
Mhm,
but there
mhm,
is
mhm.
two ways of looking at spirit, for lack of better terms, right? There's transcendence, right? There's the spirit. There's,
Right, right.
the orchestrator, the architect.
Yeah.
But then you have the human spirit, right? And refining your intuition is an endeavor to learn the voice of your human spirit and the
Mhm.
differentiation between that and the transcendent spirit, right?
Wow. Wow.
And you can experience that voice, for lack of better terms, in ways that is so distinct because it will be totally contradictory to what you're thinking or what you want to do, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to do
Yeah.
this. I know this is the right way to go, but I hear this in my gut that says, leave all of that alone.
Yeah.
And I don't want to leave all of that alone. I want to go
Yeah.
in there and do this thing.
Yeah.
But if you learn to trust that, say, okay, my intuition is saying against my consciousness, my intuition is saying leave that alone. And then you walk away from that deal, and then you find that the whole enterprise went bankrupt 2 months later.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something
Yeah.
like that
Yeah.
happened, right?
Exactly.
So intuition is that inner voice, distinct and different from your own voice, and your voice is valid, just like this other voice is valid.
Right.
But it's knowing that gut feeling and trusting it, because that gut feeling is trying to help you produce an experience that you're not currently experiencing.
Right.
Your
Right.
voice is stuck on your historical context, what I've experienced before, and I'm applying it to what I'm experiencing now. So if you're tired of experiencing what you're currently experiencing, and then you get this voice that says, do this totally different thing, this totally different way, your mind is going to try to fight this. That's not how we've
Mhm.
been doing
Wait a
things.
minute. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but
This is
you got
rational
to
here.
take a
Yeah.
step back in your mind and say, well, I don't want what I've been currently experiencing.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
been making $30,000 for the past 2 years. I want to make $50,000 now, so I
Yeah.
got to do something different. So it's learning the difference in those voices, right?
Well, and once again, there's some key words that we, have been discussing throughout this conversation. Habits, one, and intuition is another one, of course, and one that we haven't spoken about, but you kind of brought it up in a way indirectly. You didn't say the word, but it does creep up. Is fear,
Yeah.
and so it's and I was saying on a little thing that I posted the other day, it takes courage to be free. It takes courage to fully live,
Yeah. Yeah.
and because that's a scary thing, man. When you can break those chains of fear,
Mhm.
and fears, it serves its purpose, of course, and it's there for a reason. But
Yeah.
like you say, when we develop our courage of intuition, I think, man, I mean, I'll go back to Marianne Williamson's poem, our inadequacies,
Mhm.
whatever the word is right now.
Yeah, I got
And
you.
all of that tends to fall away, you
Yeah.
know, and so wow. And like I said, I'm listening to you, man, and I'm like saying to myself, you're making me think, and that's what you should be doing,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
you know,
That's what we do for each other. Iron sharpens
you
iron.
know.
That's one of the things. And this is one of the things I think about often too, is we're losing our ability to reason. Reasoning is a form of communication, and it's not
Right.
something we're doing a lot of right now. We're strong in debating,
Yeah.
we're strong in
Yes.
persuading,
Yeah.
but reasoning, coming together, and I don't need to win, you don't need to lose. Let's just think about this thing. What do you think? What comes up for you when you hear, and you just let what comes out of you, the valid, precious thoughts that are in you, come out and meet the precious thoughts that are in me, and we grow together through the experience. It doesn't have to be, I'm going to be your teacher, you're going to be my student, you're going to be my student, I'm going to be it doesn't have to be that all the time. you
Mhm,
know
mhm,
we're both
mhm.
valid in our own right. And so yeah, absolutely, man.
Wow.
Good.
Wow. John, we got a world to change, man, and we have to do our part, and you're doing your part, and uh, step by step. But I think it does take, coming together, like you say, supporting one another and locking those that type of energy to move forward. I think, of course, we're more powerful when we do move in numbers and we do things collectively.
Yeah.
And so, but like I said, we definitely have a world to change for the better, and we're doing our part. I congratulate you, man. It's been just a couple months since we have known each other, if even that. And I'm, like I said, I'm loving our ability to converse
Yeah.
in a deeper way than most. And so we got a lot to speak on, even beyond this, man. And because there's more to you than
Oh, bless
just
you.
than just what we touched on today. And I want to kind of, like I said, explore that and tap into some more of your thoughts and wisdom. And so I hope that invite is definitely there.
Absolutely. I thank
Yeah,
you from the bottom of my heart, man. This has been amazing. And I do want to continue the conversation because you're absolutely right. Like there's nobody, we're unique in our own way. And so what we bring to the table is valuable. We have to
yeah, yeah.
appreciate one another.
Yeah, yeah. So, man, tell us, man, what you have in store for 2022. Like I said, this is the top of the new year, and it's one day, leading into the next day, but it is kind of like a reset in our minds. And so, definitely, let us know where we can find you and what you got in store for coming up in the next year.
Well, thank you. I am super excited for 2022. I actually had made the decision to try to be less vocal and visual in 2022. I don't know
I
how
remember
well I'm
you
gonna be able to
saying
do
that.
that.
I remember you
I don't know
saying
how
that.
well I'm gonna be able to pull
I
that
don't
one
know, man.
off. But you can find me on social. Instagram is John_Ebron.
Okay.
Again, LeBron without the L, right? Or the basketball skills. On Twitter, I'm Ebron_coaching. And
Okay.
you can find me at my website, which is www.john-ebron.com. And
Awesome.
yeah, so a lot of cool things coming up for the year. Like I said, my just signed on with a new publisher. So we're working with him to put this new book deal together. I think it's going to be so cool to put these philosophies out. Again, like I said, I think of it as the container, right? The content is you, but this is just a good container to put your content in. And so I'm excited about that. And we're going to be launching some new coaching and training initiatives, maybe closer to the mid or end of the year.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so I'm excited, man.
Awesome.
2022 is going to be amazing.
Awesome, man. Well, any way that I can support you, man, I'm here, and just let me know how I can. and,
Absolutely.
but once again, man, thank you so much for dropping by and dropping this wisdom. I know that I can listen to this brother all day, and
Oh, bless you.
I'm looking for some big things coming up in 2022 and beyond for you. So I'm going to be looking out for you, and I'll be your fan, brother. So look for me out there.
Excellent. Right back at
All
you.
right.
Right
Good
back
deal.
at you.
Good deal. So everybody, listen, thank you so much. I know that you got some value from this, and please do look this brother up. And he can definitely, he's a change, he's a what is it called, a change maker. He's changing the world. In other words, he's changing lives for the better. And so definitely, like I said, look him up, and just have these conversations, man. This is important. But like I said, thank you so much for hanging out with us for a little while this evening. And we're going to be doing this again in the next couple of weeks or so with another guest. And we look forward to you hanging out with us again. So thank you once again, everyone. This is Todd and John. We're signing off from Living Your Best Life. Y'all be good. Peace.
Blessings, everyone.